Welcome to the Midlife and Beyond Reinvention. And I have two reinvention experts with me. I mean, we could not ask for anybody who's more of an expert in reinvention because they run Camp Reinvention. I have Wendy and Dana with me here today. So I'm just going to open up with you two and tell me a little bit about yourselves, and then tell me how you two met or connected to create this Camp Reinvention.
You want to start, Dana?
You can go first, Wendy.
Okay. Hi, I'm Wendy Perrotti. Dana and I met. We've both been coaching women over 50 for years, both in the corporate and personal development spaces. We had both done leadership training for female leaders for years, and some male leaders too. And we met at several networking events for women who do the kind of work that we do. And we liked each other. We liked each other. But here's the thing, I am a terrible networker. And Dana, which is why we're on this podcast, because she met you, Karen, is an amazing networker. And she just followed up with me and followed up with me and followed up with me. And eventually we were in the same place at the same time. And we went for a coffee after the event that we were at. And we started talking about what we loved about this work of transforming lives, of helping people sort of get to their what's next, and why we especially loved the over 50 space. I mean, spoiler alert, because we're over 50, right? And then as we talked about it, we just got excited. Well, what if we did this in a way with like groups of women so that they had a posse? What if we did this in a way that was really fun? Because we take ourselves so damn seriously and we don't have enough fun. And the more that we talked about it, the more we got to a point where we thought, there's a project here. And at that table in that one meeting, we came up with Camp Reinvention. And that was 2 years ago?
It was 2 years ago.
It's 2 years ago, yeah.
It's funny, we call it Camp Reinvention. First of all, reinvention, as you know, Karen, can be big and it can be small, right? It can be those little changes that you make in your daily life. But reinvention work can be challenging, right? It's difficult to make changes in your life. And sometimes in this work, we're asking people questions that they may never have asked themselves before. We're asking them to be really honest. And there's some things sometimes that we need to let go of to move forward in the way that we want to move forward. So the work we do is relatively intense, but we call it Camp Reinvention because we also want to have fun. And Wendy talked about that. I think at this stage of our life, we need to tap back in to what it means to have fun and to be adventurous and to be creative and to marvel again at just the wonders of the beauty of the simple things, right? And so we want to tap back into those things. And that's why we called it Camp Reinvention, because we want to make sure it really embodies both aspects.
No, I love what you said about, having to let go to move forward. I think there's a lot of truth in that because some of the times we hold on to our old lives. We can't move forward because we're not willing to let go of either what's going on right now or what's piled up in our life. Mm-hmm. So that's really profound right there. So let me ask you both there's always a turning point or a trigger or something that could, triggered us down that road of reinvention. Mm-hmm. What was it for the two of you, a moment or something that happened in your life that created this pivot?
Karen, it's funny. I'm going to share with you, throwing up in the toilet is what my pivot point was. Because for many years, there's a long story, but I'll make it short. For many years, I was doing work that I was good at, but it was not work that was in any way aligned with what is important to me. I moved my way up in magazine publishing. I was in the corner office. I had a very good job. It looked great on paper, but I was very, very unhappy because it was not something I cared about. I didn't care about advertising pages. So I learned that you can be good at something. It doesn't mean it's right for you. And then fast forward another few years, I was doing some television spokesperson work, and I was representing some products I didn't really care about. And it brought me back to that sick feeling of like, oh my gosh, why am I doing work that is not aligned with who I am? And it took me a long time. Well, in that moment, that's when I threw up in the toilet. I really, truly became physically sick because I had to do 20 interviews back to back about products I didn't care about. And it truly made me physically ill. And it was in that moment that I realized I will never do this again. I need to give myself full permission to do this work that I want to do in the world rather than the work that I think I should be doing, right? It was very hard, and it becomes very hard when you've spent a long time doing something, whether it's the work you do or the relationship you're in, to give yourself permission to realize this is not for me and this is not who I am. And I've always wanted something different. And now is the time. And when at that moment in the bathroom, I realized now is the time. So that was my very, very obvious turning point.
That's a big moment right there. And then when you know you're physically sick, a lot of times we get things that tell us you're on the right road or you're not on the right road. And that's a big one for you.
It is. And it shows up in small ways, right? I think the reality is we need to listen to our body. Our body knows the answers. And I think for a long time, I was running my life with my head, doing what I thought I should do. And my body was rejecting it. My body all along, I just didn't stop to listen. And that's a big part of what we teach. That's part of what we teach is we need to tap into our inner wisdom because we know, but sometimes we don't have the courage to listen to it.
And what about you, Wendy? What was your pivot moment?
I think it's in part of Dana's story, and you'll hear it in mine too, maybe. We all have this moment that when we look back, we can see as that pivotal moment. But for the women who are listening into this podcast, I don't want you to think that you're going to be sure that that's the moment in the moment. You might feel it then, like this is it. Dana and I both did, but there were lots of little moments before that. And quite frankly, lots of little moments after that big moment. Like life doesn't turn right there. It's just, it's a pivotal moment in your body, in your soul. But the work keeps on coming. The urge, the longing keeps on coming as you work forward. And for me, it was, I call it the yellow bathrobe moment. I had a great career in my 20s. I was a national spokesperson for the American Red Cross. I loved that job. I gave it up to raise my kids. And in that raising of my kids, my husband started building his business. He needed help, so I helped him build that business. I did his sales and his marketing and was a full-time mom at the same time. And it sounds like I did a lot, and I did a lot. And they were all really successful things. We built a great company. I had great kids, but all of it was in support of somebody else. And we had this dinner party, and Paul was driving our guest back to their hotel. And I'm in my disgusting fuzzy yellow bathrobe doing dishes at the sink. And rather than feeling like glorious about this really flawless dinner party that I had thrown, I was so like alone. I felt so like I had nothing to offer. I had nothing. I didn't even know who I was anymore. Anything that I had to talk about at that table was about someone else. It was about my children, or it was about my husband's business, or it was about I had nothing of my own, and I didn't even know what that might look like. And
lose ourselves.
I felt like I had completely lost myself and had no idea who I was anymore. And I knew that that had to change.
And how did you find yourself in that process?
I started that night, that night, and it's a long story, so I won't tell it here, but it ended up being like a real smack in the face of, well, I'll tell you a little snippet of it. I was thinking, well, if my husband comes back and says how Frank, this gentleman who had been at dinner, says, what a wonderful, oh, Wendy, it'll be just fine. But in fact, my husband came home and said, oh my God, you should hear about Frank's wife. She's an opera singer. She used to be a model. She was a, and it was like, and then he went and had a shower, and I just got the bourbon and started crying and started writing. And so from there, I started writing, I started introspecting, I started reading, and I started to transform through what I learned about my own introspection and personal development, and the combination between all of those ahas and taking action. And this is one of the things that we are so, I think, that we have such an incredible process for at Camp Reinvention, translating all of that aha into small actionable steps that build on one another. And I think that's the biggest thing that I learned in that transformation.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about passion. I mean, obviously, that's my wheelhouse. I'm the author of Unwrapping Your Passion. So I always ask this question in every interview. What is passion? And how do you define it?
It's interesting. What is passion? I think passion is what lights your soul on fire. It's the thing that lights you up. I think passion is very internally motivated. I think purpose is when you take your passion and you go out and serve the world with it. So passion to me is very internal. And it's truly that thing that lights you up. And it doesn't have to be one thing. It could be many things, but it's when you feel fully alive, when you feel fully in your element, when you feel fully who you are. I think that's what passion is.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, very true about being internal and that it doesn't have to apply to one thing. Because that's one of the biggest myths about passion is that people think I have to find my passion and it's got to be this one big grand thing. And we know that's not true. How about you, Wendy?
I agree with so much of what Dana said about what passion is. And I think there's this element also of how we chase it that can sometimes get in our way, right? Because we learn to attach that what lights me up often with some sense of ROI, right? With some sense of I'm doing this because I'm a lifelong learner. I'm doing this because I'm fulfilling my purpose. I'm doing this because, and all of those things, like when we get really good at it, when we know what our passion truly is and it's aligned with who we are, then all of those pieces of our life that we play with are passion driven, right? They're driven by what we at camp call our compass. And they're the right thing for who we are. They're the right actions. They're the right activities. And yet, if we define passion as having this outcome attached to it, even living a passionate, purpose-driven life can drain us and leave us ragged. Like passion needs to have that space for, I call it glow, right? This space for, I'm just doing it because it feels good. You know what I mean? Like that. Remember when we were kids and we'd be like, I'm bored. What am I going to do today? Oh, I'll do this. I'll stick my finger in the sand. Like I think it needs to have elements of that to keep us charged up so that we can live fully alive.
One thing I find too, Karen, I'm curious if you think this, sometimes people get overwhelmed by the term passion. And then they start beating themselves up that I don't know what my passion is. There must be something wrong with me. And we always encourage people, and I'm curious what your approach is, Karen. We always encourage people to lean into curiosity, right? Just do something because you're curious about it. Just do something because it sounds exciting to you, or just maybe a little bit interesting, and lean into that and use it as a great kind of chance to explore and to just get to know yourself better. Dabble in a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and notice, when do I feel more alive? When am I feeling totally into it, right? And I think that is kind of the entry point into finding your passion. Because when we use passion here, like it's a word up here, it sounds like something that needs to be obtained, but maybe we haven't obtained yet. And maybe that's 100, it's not only okay, but maybe that's great, because it gives you the chance to say, okay, I'm going to lean in now to just finding things that I like to do because I want to do it.
You must have read my book. It's so funny. Well, here's the thing. First and foremost, I've interviewed over 200 people on the topic of passion, and I've gotten 200 different definitions of it. But here's the thing. The best definition came from a woman, Jackie St. Ange. She said to me, Karen, passion is your joy. And when we stop and we think of passion and joy, all of a sudden it becomes very clear what brings us joy in our life. But you hit it on the first level of passion. There's 5 levels, because I couldn't figure out, why do some people take off with passion, and why do other people still circle around and around in the same old routines in their life? What was the difference between the two? And then I sat down, and when I mapped it out, I came up with the clear path. So the very first level of passion is C, curiosity. You start with what you're curious about. All passion is born in what we're curious about. Something will catch our eyes, something will intrigue us, something will, we want to dive into it more. So that's the C level. The next level is learning. You start learning more about it. You're curious about it, then you start learning about it. Then you hit the excitement stage. At the enthusiasm stage, it's like, man, I like this thing. It lights me up. It's good. It feels good. And then you come to the awareness of, this is my passion. This is what I want to do. And the very top stage is the recognition stage. Other people start seeing your energy of passion and recognizing your force. It's called the clear path. This is CEAR. And that's what I discovered in doing this research about passion. Because when we think about having a clear path, then we can start having tools that get us to that point. And the surprising meaning behind passion is the willingness to suffer. So when you create something that you are passionate about, you're willing to go above and beyond. You know, like obviously the two of you are very passionate about Camp Reinvention. You're willing to go above and beyond.
You don't know the half of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what would you tell a woman smack dab in midlife who feels no hope, who feels old, who feels like the best years are over and done with behind us, who feels that they have no skills or no direction, or maybe lost the way Wendy felt? What would you tell, or how would you guide a woman through midlife and beyond?
I think it starts with your beliefs. And this is something we talk about in camp, right? The beliefs that we have really dictate all the actions and the outcomes of our lives. And so we start with 3 really fundamental beliefs at camp. Number 1, change is possible. Number 2, the life you've lived so far does not dictate the life you can live in the future. And number 3 is, it is never too late for you to pursue a dream, ever. It may be a different dream than it was when you were 20, but it's never too late for you to pursue a dream. I think those are, in fact, we think those are so foundational that we ask every one of our campers to really try those beliefs on for size, play with them, embody them. And I think that is your starting point. You need to first believe, and then you can move forward and make those changes you want to make.
And
I love that.
it's
Wendy,
amazing
you
to
want to add?
see. Yeah, it's amazing to see that when anyone, no matter their starting point, embraces that and then takes on, I love your clear path, Karen. I love that it is that you could use that for one passion. You can use it for a million tiny passions, right? And they take that sort of clear path, they take actions in a community of women. We see it over and over again at camp. Take on those beliefs, choose a path, right? Follow a process that's based on curiosity, that's based on alignment with that compass, right? Your passion, who you are, your values, all of those things in the community of women who are in it with you, who will pull you up, who will keep moving you forward. We have never, ever seen anyone fail. Like, it works. It's like, it's not like we believe it because it's this pie in the sky thing. We believe it because we see it over and over and over. Hundreds of women have gone through this process with us. It always works.
I love that. I love that. Let's switch gears a little bit for a minute. What do the two of you do for fun?
That's a great question. First of all, I have a husband and 3 boys, so I absolutely adore my time with them, and they're all getting bigger and older, so it's even that much more special when you have time with them. And we're a big outdoor family. Anything that is getting outdoors. I love hiking and biking and walking by the beach. I think being in nature is kind of my happiness and therapy. I think anything outdoors and challenging myself that way, I absolutely love. And we love good food. I have to say, we're a family that loves good food. So I strive to be a better cook. I'm still working at that, but we definitely spend good time and good money on food because that's something we truly enjoy. And time with girlfriends, I have to say, time with girlfriends. And I've missed that. In the past couple of years, I really missed that. I haven't had as much time with girlfriends. And I realize how important that is in my life. I've always known that, but I'm feeling a little bit of a loss of that and really eager now that the world is opening up to spend more time with my girlfriends.
And for me, it's myself, fundamentally, it is anything on the ocean. We sail. I walk down to the beach every single day and just make one pass up and down. I pick up a couple pieces of beach glass. I breathe the air. Like, the ocean is something that gives me that glow. And then my family, we're the opposite almost. Not that we don't like to be outside. We sail, we love the beach, all that. But I live with 3 musicians. Well, my daughter's away right now. My son is also in school as a musician. And so we're like the middle of the night in the clubs listening to bands and jazz and music. And so music is a huge part of our family dynamic. And, that and books, music, books, and the beach. I think I'm good. Like, if I have that, occasional sail.
I love that.
Delightful.
Beach glass. I want some of that.
Hey, Karen, can I ask you a question? What is your passion? What is it that
Yes,
you
of
love?
course, absolutely.
So what is your passion?
My passion, when I answer that question, it's usually something I do. If you ask me what am I passionate about, you're going to get a different answer. But as far as passion as what I do, I love barefoot water skiing. I mean, that's been part of my story. That's how I became deaf at 19 when I fell. And I got back on the water at 44. And I'm 56 now. So that was the pivot moment for me, getting back on the water. It just changed everything. It was like, oh, what else can I do? What more can I do? And since then, I've done handstands. I've gone zip lining. I've gone sailing. We went sailing for a week, and that was amazing. I've jumped off the cliff. So that one pivot actually led to many, many more adventures because that's the thing. When you start thinking in terms of what can you passionately do or what can you passionately experience, it starts opening the whole world up for you. It's not just one thing, it's about how you change as a person with that passionate energy. I've got one more question before we wrap up. And I wanted to ask you both because one of the things that I do in coaching and working with people is I have people look back in their past and think about a time where they did something joyously or passionately that they would love to bring back in midlife. And for me, obviously, it was the barefoot water skiing, but the other thing was the handstands. The simple act of doing a handstand. I convinced my family to do a handstand on the beach in Belize, and we got this beautiful picture for a Christmas card one year. So something simple as that. It doesn't cost any money. So I want you both to look back in your past for a minute and think about something that you joyously, carefree did as a child, but have not yet done it in midlife. What would you love to bring back?
I have to say, I as you were talking, I'm scrolling through and I brought a lot of those things back, but it's cartwheels. I was like the queen of the cartwheel, and not because I was a cheerleader, like they weren't pretty, but I would love to do a cartwheel. I don't know if I'll throw my back out, but I
want a video. You're going to owe me a video of that.
All right. I'll send it.
Okay, and Dana, how about you?
I'm having to scroll through my head too. I asked myself that question about 10 years ago, and my answer was bike riding. I love bike riding. There's such a freedom in it and exploration, and I can do it alone. I can do it with somebody. I feel like when I'm on a bike, I explore in a way that you cannot see in a car, and I can see so much more than walking, right? So I got a bike, and I got my bike about, 8 or 10 years ago, and that's brought back a lot of joy in my life. I love it. I'm smiling as both of you talk about standing on your hand and cartwheels. I actually am going to say walking on my hands. I was really good at walking on my hands. I could enter the doorway and I would walk on my hands. Wendy, I don't think you know this. I would walk on my hands through the kitchen, around the dining room, around the living room, and then land again. And I could go up and down my front yard. I was really good at it. So, and I haven't tried it in years. So I'm gonna have to try it. I don't know if I can do it anymore. Try it.
We'll need to we'll practice on the beach or someplace like padded.
That sounds great.
Work at homework.
Actually, I thought of one more thing. Dancing. I don't feel like I've danced in so long. I used to love dancing, and we would do the fundraisers where you dance for 10 hours, and in any party, I was always the one to dance. I feel like since that stage of life where we were going to weddings, I haven't really danced. A little bit on my own, but I would love to go to a party or go to a bar and music and just dance my heart out. I haven't done that in a really long time.
You have
know
to
some musicians where you can.
Exactly.
Yeah, you guys get together and do some dancing and make some music together at Camp Reinvention. So yeah, you also have to check out this story of Edie. She is also on my Midlife Reinvention YouTube. So if you check that out, she, after reading my book, she said to me, Karen, I know what I'm passionate about, dancing. And right then and there, she signed up for dance lessons. She hadn't danced in years. She dances 3 to 4 times a week now for the last, 4 years or something.
Fantastic.
So, like you said, you can change your life at any time. The life that you have had prior to midlife can be so different, midlife and beyond. I want to thank you both for sharing today. It was just so much fun. And I wish you guys the best at Camp Reinvention.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Karen. This was a blast.
Yes, so enjoy it and so love getting to know you. And thank you for the work that you're doing, helping people with passion. By the way, I saw your video that you did speaking on stage, talking about your story, and it was beautiful. The story that you did, it was like a monarch kind of telling your story. And for any of your listeners that haven't listened to it yet, you did a beautiful job and it was so inspiring.
I love speaking. That's for sure. That is definitely one thing that I'm passionate about is speaking. Yeah, I love telling stories. Yeah. So once again, thank you both for sharing here.
So thank you, Karen, and we will
Thank
see you
you.
soon.
Thank you.
Big love.
Bye, everybody.